contradictory sworn statements from witnesses who had already provided sworn statements to IPID officials. And the sworn statements provided to IPID officials were now being countered under the false allegation, and I believe the evidence has been led by Robert McBride. The false allegation was that there was a so-called threat against General Pashlani. But the reality of the situation is there was no request to carry out a threat analysis. That was a cover story. And the cover story resulted in a docket being opened, I think, on the first week or the second week of January, multiplicity of statements being taken from state witnesses who had already given statements to IPID, and 3 weeks later, fraudulently obtaining arrest warrants and then arresting people to stop the investigation into General Pashlani. The end result was that IPID took it upon themselves to launch an application in the High Court to have the counter-investigation declared unlawful, and the counter-investigation eventually, I think it was Justice Tugton, Neil Tugton, and Justice Neil Tugton gave an order stating that the conduct of the Northwest team was illegal. But notwithstanding all of that, my submission to the Zondo Commission sets out chapter and verse with evidence, and the evidence includes the transcripts of the meetings that took place. And those transcripts prove beyond reasonable doubt, and the voice recordings prove beyond reasonable doubt, that the counter-investigation statements were false, and they were only intended to bring false charges against myself, my then corporate counsel, Sarah Jane Trent, and I think 2 or 3, I can't remember their names, of the IPID officers that were carrying out the investigation based on the docket which I had opened. And at that point, it became clear that, in fact, the docket I had opened ended up getting parked, and I don't think, although he was arrested on it, I don't think he was
I think we
prosecuted on it. And then other dockets were opened by IPID, which I had absolutely nothing to do with.
Okay, no, I think we got to the point. Did you or did you not threaten those people there to falsify statements, to give you personal banking details of people, to give you the building plan of General Pashlane's house, and if not, they are liable for an imprisonment of a time period not less than 2 years because they are defying you and you are from IPID?
And the answer is no. It's an absolute lie.
So if you were there to point out a crime scene as a complainant at IPID, what was Ms. Trent doing there?
What was what?
Ms. Trent doing there?
Well, she was my corporate counsel. She's an attorney, and she assisted me with the investigation into Pashlani. She was also at the time a director of Forensics for Justice. Forensics for Justice were carrying out the investigation. Forensics for Justice was registered, and the purpose of Forensics for Justice is to expose state-sponsored corruption. And if you go on the website, you can see all the cases there where we have brought charges against people for corruption. And I think only 2 of those cases involved working with IPID. And that was the case against General Nqola, who eventually got fired. It was found that his appointment was unlawful because he was not a fit and proper person, and also the Pashlani matter. And the Pashlani matter that the docket I opened only related to where the funds came from for the construction of his house and his corrupt relationship with a police supplier. And when IPID investigate that, they found a lot more. And I wasn't involved in that investigation at all.
Okay. Let's go back to your walkout,
The what?
your march out.
Mass house. What? Ah,
When you stood up and left in Parliament. Do you understand that you took an oath that you are going to answer fully and satisfactorily? And you just stood up when the evidence leader was still busy questioning you. Do you not consider that as a breaking your own oath that you have taken in Parliament? And consequences for that should be followed in accordance to the powers, privileges, and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislators Act.
no, I don't.
You stood up without being released.
Honorable Nqola, that question is not related to our terms of reference. It's a matter which the committee can deal with at its own time.
Are you saying, Chair, we shouldn't ask questions in relation to the march out?
Yeah, no, it's not related to our terms of reference. Let's probe the witness for the purpose we called him here. If members want to discuss that matter, we can discuss it later, but not during the proceedings. If you want the witness to respond to that, let's deal with the matters that we called him here for. And when we are done with these proceedings, if you want him to explain that incident, then we can give you time to deal with that.
No, Chair, you'll recall that at the time of the incident, you would have rotated the matter and asked if we want Mr. O'Sullivan back. And we would have, as members, expressly said yes, and given the reasons why we want Mr. O'Sullivan back. And amongst those reasons was the conduct of him as a witness under oath in respect of the work we're doing here as Parliament. So I don't understand now if we are not going to go to that extent, Chair, because we have expressly said amongst the reasons we want him back is that the way he has conducted himself in this work we're doing is actually relevant to a sitting of this.
That is exactly what I'm saying, that for now, use your time to ask him questions. When we are done with this part, we will give you a chance to ask him questions on that matter.
That's fine, Chair. I'm happy to
It must
come
be a separate item.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
That's fine, Chair. I'm done for the first part. Thank you.
The 3 minutes that I've taken from you, don't want to use them.
No, I'm done, Chair.
Okay. Honorable Sangoni.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning again, Mr. O'Sullivan. You know what? I think a lot of ground we've already canvassed, but there are obviously things that have since arisen since the last time you were here, and we thought that we would use this opportunity to then address those. Now, just this morning when you arrived, you said SAPS is still captured. Who has captured SAPS right now, according to you?
Chairman, I've set this out in my affidavit in some detail. And I remain of the opinion that certain senior management within the police, specifically within crime intelligence, and the police commissioner himself, they have a lot of questions to answer. And I'm not Parliament, but somebody somewhere needs to be asking those questions. And the type of questions I'm talking about are set out in some detail in my affidavit. And I have gone over it already. If you require me to go through it again, I'm happy to do so. But I remain of the opinion that if you can open a docket in South Africa and 3 weeks later get warrants of arrest for 2 people or 4 people who are exposing a corrupt police chief, that's proof that the state is captured, that the police and the prosecution service is captured. And then when those people get arrested in breach of a High Court order that says that I may not be arrested, and by the way, I spent over R500,000 to get that High Court order. And the only reason I applied for that High Court order was because the dirty cops kept raiding my offices and kept threatening to arrest me, and did arrest me and drag me off planes and do all these nasty things. I was left no alternative but to get the High Court order. Having obtained the High Court order, we have video footage of this Northwest team arresting me and my attorney reading the High Court order out to them and them saying that order doesn't apply to us. And then that same night, when my attorneys go and bring an urgent application for habeas corpus at midnight in the High Court, because it's an urgent matter, the same prosecutor that was here yesterday, Michael Mshuka, he went there and told the court that order doesn't apply to him either. And they
Sorry, Mr.
wanted to
O'Sullivan, I'll come back.
detain me.
Sorry.
And the reason they want to detain me was as punishment to stop me from exposing corruption.
Okay, I've got the High Court order because I wanted to ask you about that. But you see why, and I don't want you to go back to your affidavit. I mean, we've gone through that at length. The problem we have, whether it's your problem or our problem as a committee, is that everybody makes sweeping statements about how corrupt criminal intelligence is. I would have thought that at least you would be in a position to at least give us some sort of evidence around this. Would you be able to do that? Do you have evidence that points to this corruption in criminal intelligence and the police commissioner?
Yeah, I have the evidence, Chairman. It's contained within my affidavit. And I mean, must we go back to it and read it? Because it's there. I've set out copious detail of how the crime intelligence Secret Service account, which I call a slush fund, has been a piggy bank for senior police officials for the last 20 years. And it's still a piggy bank. And in 2012, I've used as an example, that piggy bank budget was 98 million rand per annum. This year, it's 600 million rand per annum, which is a growth of over 500%. And during the same period, inflation only grew at 113%. And then you end up with a situation where...
And so Advocate Mashukha contends that you have contravened both the National Prosecuting Authority Act as well as the National Credit Act, and he sets out why. So I'm going to start with the National Credit Act. He's talking about your ability and consistent obtaining of personal credit information, amongst others, financial information of private citizens. Now, you are not authorized to have that information, do you?
Chairman, that's not correct. If you look at the Act, and I don't have the Act in front of me because I didn't know this question would be coming. If you look at the Act, it makes it clear that the information can be used for fraud prevention and fraud investigation purposes. Now, fraud and corruption are pretty much the same thing. Quite often, Chairman, a person is charged with fraud and corruption, or just fraud. And those investigations, they are investigative tools. So there's every certified fraud examiner in the country who carries out fraud investigations, signs a code of conduct, has access to those tools.
But it
They're
was,
not allowed to.
Sorry, Mr. O'Sullivan. When you were getting the personal information of Mr. Dupree, for example, General Pahlane's driver, were you investigating him for fraud?
Now, Chairman, when you're doing a fraud investigation, you have to be able to find witnesses. And in the case of General Pahlane, we received information, and it was the builder of the house. His name, Frikkie de Blanche. And Frikkie de Blanche gave information that he was paid with checkers or spar bags out of the boot of General Pahlane's car. And the first payment was 350,000 Rand in cash. The second payment was 350,000 Rand in cash. So we asked him who was the driver of the car. Actually, it was IPID that